This video will walk you through the process of scheduling a formal observation. As we talked about in seminar this week, it's going to be really important that you stay on top of formal observation windows and be proactive in scheduling the time that you'd like to be visited for a formal observation by your supervisors. Ms. Phillips and I both use this field schedule calendar to tell you when we're available to see you, and you can see as we start to schedule observations, you'll be able to see on the calendar where we are in the building. So for example, here's an appointment at 1, here's an appointment at 12:30, so you can be proactive in making sure you're selecting a time that looks like it's available for us. You're required to be observed in reading, math, and science, but you probably won't schedule your science observation. Those are unannounced. You will want to schedule your reading, math, and third observations, including your first observation. Science is not the first observation. We want you to go ahead and get your first observation in before those science units are really due. So you're going to be using this field experience calendar to schedule your first formal observation. So you're going to start by going to calendar.google.com. Every Gmail has a calendar associated with it. I have shared this calendar called Field Schedule. It's listed over in the left-hand column with the Gmail address that you've been using to share files with us. If you'd like it to be shared with a different Gmail address, you need to let us know so that we can update the sharing permissions. Because this field schedule has to give everybody the capacity to schedule appointments, please be very careful when you go into the calendar and schedule yours. We all have the capacity to change events, so please make sure that you don't inadvertently change someone else's event, including availabilities and things like that. So if you do make a mistake and you think you've deleted or altered somebody else's time, if you would, alert us by email very quickly. I can usually track down what happened because I have the original invitations if everybody's followed the process correctly. So just be aware when you're working in the calendar that you want to be careful as you go clicking. So when it comes time to schedule an appointment, the first thing you do is check to see for availability of a supervisor. Let's suppose that Melissa wants to be observed at 2:35 on January the 30th. The first thing we do is come in, we look at the field schedule, and we notice, yes, Dr. Lasanti is in the building from 12:30 to 4. We confirm that the time 2:35 is available, and it's in a building and in a location that Dr. Lasanti can make it there. Because if you'll notice, I'm at Price's Fork, and let's suppose this observation needs to happen at Bellevue, but by 2:35, I would be able to get to Bellevue. So that's great. So we can go ahead and get this on the schedule. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to click on the date that we want our observation. And you'll notice when you immediately do that, it defaults to your Google Calendar. Make the change first to field schedule, because if you don't get this changed, then your observation won't show up on the master schedule. And that means that other people won't know you've requested my attendance, and somebody else might actually scoot in and take the time you're looking for because your appointment was sitting on the wrong calendar and nobody could see it. Field schedule is the calendar that's visible to everyone, so make sure that that's the calendar where you're requesting the observation. So when we want to schedule a formal observation, we always start that with FO for formal observation. Then we put in the name of the person who wants to be observed. In this case, we'll put Melissa, and then we put the time. So the observation is 2:35. I always say put 5 minutes early just to give me some transportation time. And then we can go down here and we add the time. Now typically Google is smart enough to pull the time in, but I always go to edit time and double check, because in this case I don't need to be observing for a full hour. In this case the observation is going to end at 3:10. So we're going to put 3:15 in here just to give us a little wiggle room. And now we've scheduled that. I still want you to go to more options, and then when we click under more options, it pulls up a deeper menu, and we'd like for you to go ahead and add your location. So let's say this observation is going on in BES in Ms. Jones's classroom. You can be specific here if you want us to observe you in the library, or maybe you're doing a small group in a room next door, or maybe you're teaching your class in a different location outside. Be specific in your location. It also helps the people who are going to be trying to schedule observations around you to know where the supervisor is when that's happening. Down in the add description, we'd like for you to give us just a little bit of a heads up of what we're seeing. And also in the title of the event, go ahead and put the subject as well. So that way we kind of have a sense from the calendar what we're seeing. So in this case, for our description, we're going to put small group math, 2 rotations, double-digit addition, let's suppose. And that's a review station. That gives us just a little heads up of what we're going to see when we get there. Now here, you're going to go to Add Guests, and this is important. This is where we get our invitations from. So if you would please go ahead and invite us with our Gmail addresses. In this case, I'm mlisanti.vt, the address you've been using, and it's rhondap@vt.edu. Those are our Gmail addresses, so you can go ahead and send our invitations to those addresses. The next thing you're going to do is hit Save, and that puts your conference on the calendar. And you'll notice that it is showing up on the field. This video will walk you through the process of scheduling a formal observation. As we talked about in seminar this week, it's going to be really important that everybody stay on top of their formal observation windows and be very proactive in scheduling the times that you'd like for supervisors to come and see you in action. This is the field schedule calendar. It's in Google Calendar, and Ms. Phillips and Dr. Lisanti use it to schedule formal observations and to alert you to our availability. We have shared this calendar with everybody in the cohort based on the Gmail addresses you've been using to share files with us. If you would like to change that Gmail address that it's associated with, email us and we can update the sharing permissions. That means that when you log in to calendar.google.com, you should now see in your My Calendars list a box for Field Schedule. It may be under My Calendars or it may be in other calendars, but it should be called Field Schedule. The check mark means that the events are visible on your calendar. If it's not checked, go ahead and do so. When you log in, you should be able to see Dr. Lisanti's availability in schools. It's here, and on My Calendar, it's purple. You can click on these 3 dots to change the color. If you'd like to make it a different color on yours, that's entirely up to you. This is the field schedule that everyone in the cohort uses, and because we all need the power to schedule observation appointments, that means we all have the power to edit the calendar. Please be careful when you go in to schedule your appointments because you could inadvertently click on somebody else's appointment and make a change or delete somebody else's observation. If you think you've done that, please make sure you get in touch with us as soon as possible by email. Usually I can track down what happened pretty easily because I save the invitations that come to me. We can backtrack and put it together. Just be alert. Make sure that you're clicking on blank white space and that you're in the field and you're in the observation event that you are trying to edit. So let's suppose that Melissa would like to be observed at Bellevue on Wednesday, January 30th at 2:35. The first thing to do is come into the calendar and verify that a supervisor is available. And yes, Melissa Lisanti is in schools that afternoon from 12:30 to 4. There's already one appointment on the calendar, but it's at 12:30, and it's at PFES, which means that she should be able to get to Bellevue for an observation without a problem by 2:35. So we can go ahead and request this observation time. So we're going to click on the date, and you'll notice that Google defaults to your personal calendar when creating events. So the first thing to do is change that to field schedule. If you don't, then your observation time only shows up on your calendar and nobody else in the cohort can see it. So somebody could inadvertently double book and take the time you've requested did because they didn't know you had already scheduled an observation. It was only showing up on your calendar. So make sure your observation is requested on the field schedule calendar. We're always going to start those invites with FO for formal observation. We're going to put the last name of the person being observed, so in this case, Lasanti, and we're going to put a subject and a school. So, Lasanti wants to be observed in math at BES. That's going to go right on the calendar and be readily visible to the supervisors who are visiting and to alert other people to what school we're in. Now we need to go ahead and add a time. And we do that here. And let's suppose the observation's 2:35. I always suggest starting it 5 minutes early just to make sure that there's a little bit of flex room in there. And then we don't need a full hour. We're only going to be observing for half an hour, but it's going to end at 3:10 really, so I need to put in here 3:15. Okay, now we can go to more options and verify our times, 2:30 to 3:15, and we're going to add a location, BES, and this time let's put Jones's classroom. This is useful for us because if you put in the space, then we know exactly where to find you. Sometimes you might be teaching in the library, or you might be teaching outside, or you might be teaching a small group in a classroom next door. Whatever it may be, go ahead and give us a location, and then give us a brief description of what we're going to see. So let's suppose we're seeing small group rotations. In math, we're going to see 2 rotations, and we're going to be looking at multiplication. That just gives us a little sense of what we're going to see. The next thing to do is make sure you invite the supervisor that you want to come and visit you. So in this case, it's me. That's mlasanti.vt. That's the email address you've been sharing Google Documents with me. In Ms. Phillips's case, it's rhondap@vt.edu. You have those email addresses. Make sure you send that invitation because that's what will alert us that something is hitting our calendars. So then we go ahead and hit save. And you will notice that we now have the observation here. And because I'm logged into my Google Calendar, this lets you see a little bit what's going to happen on my end. I've now received an invitation from you that I will put on my calendar. So I've received an invitation. I'm going to go in. Here's my invitation to go observe Melissa Lasanti in math at BES. I'm going to go ahead and click yes. And now it's been added to my calendar. And when you go into your invitation, you'll be able to see that I have accepted your invitation and your observation time is confirmed. Very simple. It's also nice that, so when you look at this calendar, you won't see the orange calendar because that's mine. When you're logged in, you'll see your events, but you would be able to see this 12:30 appointment and the 2:30 request that was made by the student requesting the observation. That's all there is to it. Just make sure, like I said, that you're careful when you're in, that you're editing and verifying where the supervisor is around the time you've requested. Make sure you're giving enough room for travel or movement, and make sure that you're not clicking and inadvertently changing someone else's observation. Those invitations that you sent are stored in Gmail, so we can usually go back and find issues when we experience them. But if you follow this process, we shouldn't have any trouble.